Ho, ho. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I've heard of once in a lullaby. Sing if you know it. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up when the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I? Thank you.
Hello, hello. We need a mic on. Thank you to Dina Blade. Let's give her a round of applause. There we go. Well, welcome, family and friends. It's so amazing to see a packed house today. Thank you for joining us as we celebrate the life of our dear Dr. Betsy Ellen Brown. And some of you were here just under 23 years ago to celebrate her and Jamie's wedding, and there's no better place for us to celebrate her life than here today. She got to complete her circle on November 1st, 2024, and what a circle it was. Mary Oliver asks this wonderful question that maybe we should ask about all of our lives. What will you do with your one wild and precious life? And as I read this, I can't help but think of Betsy, who lived an incredibly vibrant life, who was courageous, creative, and intelligent, who cared about her community, but not in just thoughts and ideas, but she loved her community with her body, with every ounce of her being. There's so many words we could use to describe her. Educator, new games trainer, healer, doctor, world traveler, advocate for the AIDS community, writer, pilgrim, friend, researcher, musician, dedicated to her neighbors, partner to Jamie, dog parent to Barlow. And while we can't encapsulate all of her life today, we do want to highlight some moments that depict her one wild and precious life. We miss her greatly, and yet, here's my invitation for all of us today, to approach this with defiant joy. There's so much in our world right now that would threaten to steal our joy. But by gathering here today, we honor Betsy's life. We continue her legacy of service and community. I love in some traditions, they call the first death and second death. The first death is when you pass from, you complete your circle, but the second death is when you're forgotten. And so we know Betsy will not be forgotten, not for a long time. But we stand here today to honor her joyously. And as we do, I'm just gonna quote, Jamie wrote something really beautiful on Facebook the other day that's really stuck with me, so I think this is kind of our charge as we move forward. Together, we will find the way. We will move forward in spite of it all. We will do it for Betsy Brown and for all the community. We must. And friends, we will. So as we go through today's service, we're gonna just share some stories from her life. If at any point you want to sign a book, there's a book towards the back where you can sign in. Also, if you like some of the flowers you see around, you can put your name on the bottom underneath, and then we just invite you to give a donation towards the scholarship fund in Betsy's name. But I'm going to welcome up our first person to speak, Betsy's brother, Clint Brown.
Hi, everybody. I'm Clint. I'm here with my wife and my two boys. Kevin and Michael are here today. Charlene, where are you? There you are, right there. Charlene and I live in Go for it. Redlands, California. Yeah, I don't work for a geography company. I think one of my earliest memories of Betsy when we were little kids was she was learning new words, and she said, she made some kind of thing where, I don't know, she hit me or something like that, and said, Clint, I actually did it. And I was so frustrated with her. I didn't even tell her. I didn't say, it's accidentally, it's actually. But that was Betsy. She just charged into life. And growing up, being a year apart, we were in school together, and it was always wonderful to have her around. She was that person who did just kind of embrace life and took it all in and took it on. Of course, she wanted a dog. We got a dog. His name was Snoopy. From just, I guess, it was the times for what was going on. But always, she was just wonderful. Like what she did all through life was always very inspirational. Like the time that she spent in the Southwest. Her first stint there was to complete her degree in medicine. She took an assignment with, I think it might still be called this, it shocks me, it's called the Indian Health Service. If it's not, Trump's gonna rename it back to its appropriate name. But she lived with the Hopi people on the Hopi Nation. If you know much about the Hopi Nation, it is surrounded by the Navajo Nation. And the Hopi people go way back in that area, and just her connections into the community and her support for those tribes and those families was always just amazing. And that was one of the things about Betsy. She was always just really good at that. She later moved back there to do AIDS research in Santa Fe, and served a lot of people. At the time, people weren't very, I just say most people weren't very accepting of anybody with AIDS. It was kind of like they got their due or something like that, but not Betsy. She was just always there for people who needed some support and attention. That was Betsy. My last time to speak with her was on the phone. Charlene and I happened to be in Portugal at the time. And she got on the phone, it was the middle of the night. And as I spoke with her, after I got done, I looked over at Charlene and I said, I think it's gonna be the last time I get to speak with her. And it was just a few weeks later that she passed away. She did have a good final day and afternoon. We weren't there for that, but I was very thankful that she had it, and I was thankful that she was no longer suffering. So, you know, Betsy was supposed to be around to bury all us boys. I was sure she was going to live into her 90s. Just sure of that. And it wasn't meant to be. And that's a lot about life is, you know, you never know what's meant to be, but that notion, I think, it's a lesson for me about how to just continue to live life and keep going and find ways to give back to others, to serve others. And I'll always treasure having a sister like that. I'm sure all of you have similar stories, and we'll hear a lot of them today. So I just want to thank you all for coming today and for being here, and for many of you being such great friends and band partners with her. It's just really wonderful. So thank you very much.
And now we're going to welcome up Bob Brown.
Great words, Clint. Thanks. So I've also brought my two sons, Cameron and Brandon. You can tell how much loved and respected Betsy was. 4 of her nephews came, as well as Sharon, her cousin, and the crowd. Look at the standing room only. So just shows how much Betsy was loved. So I'm the youngest kid of the Brown clan. I'm glad Betsy was in our life because we had another brother named Tom. I don't know if any of y'all remember Tom. He was jokingly the bad seed of our family. So since I was the youngest ones, all of the older siblings were a great influence on me. So I'm glad I had Betsy to balance out Tom. So lots of stories about Tom. But anyway, one of the great things about being the young kid and with these siblings is all the music they inspired in me. I was 6 years younger than Betsy, so I'm normally in my room alone, but then I'm hearing all this wonderful music in the late 60s and early 70s. And then throughout Betsy's visits, she'd always there would always be albums showing up, so I was inspired, all kinds of folk, blues, world music, all kinds of things. And then she got into old time, and I'm very, very thankful for that because that's led me down another path. I don't really play all the time, but I like all types of roots music. And I'm very, very grateful she met Jamie. Yeah, what a wonderful addition to our family. So, Jamie, I'll treasure our relationship, and hopefully we'll get to visit many, many times again. So, thanks.
Hi again. I didn't introduce myself. My name is Jen Mangloss. I'm a friend of Betsy's from the Camino. But right now I'm going to get to read a story from Todd Strong, who wasn't able to be here today. Hi, my name is Betsy Brown, and I'm an emotionally disturbed teacher. This always received a chuckle from attendees at New Games trainings. When asked how the Hells Angels recruited new members, Sonny Barger explained there was no formal process to join. The Angels just recognized them. While the New Games Foundation had a bit more structure, it was clear from the start that Betsy had found one of her tribes. Surrounded and supported by a group of people who were, by the nature of their job, predisposed to be playful, kind, supportive, and inclusive, she was a natural. Say yes and move the scene forward is a guideline for improv actors. Betsy instinctively grasped that concept. She easily assimilated the structure and mood of the trainings and added her own flavor. Her role in helping the New Games philosophy of play hard, play fair, and nobody hurt was significant. One week in between two trainings that were in Texas, Betsy graciously offered to put me up. I took advantage of the opportunity to visit her school. Watching a professional handle a class of emotionally disturbed kids is always impressive. More striking was that these children were Texans. Cowboy boots and oversized belt buckles were the norm for the boys. I still remember one youngster's frequent outbursts of, "Yee-haw, ride me Texas!" Ms. Brown supported and nurtured her students with care, concern, and professionalism. Already a full-time accomplished teacher, Betsy enthusiastically accepted the challenge to share New Games with others. This player for life continued to incorporate the concepts of fairness, compassion, and fun for all into her varied passions. Decades ago in the early 70s, I sat in on a friend's pre-med biochemistry lecture. At the end of the class, the professor held up a blank sheet of paper. After explaining that the paper represented the pool of potential doctors, he proceeded to tear off strips and let them fall. Each torn shred represented a group whose members were not usually accepted to med school. One after another, a litany of minorities fell to the floor. A particularly sizable discarded strip stood for women. At the end, while clutching the small remaining scrap of paper between his thumb and index finger, the instructor lamented, "If the medical profession does not open its doors more widely, we will be condemned to relying on this tiny subset of future medical practitioners." Fortunately for us, I'll just add, I know a lot of us have been impacted by Betsy's medical practice, but so fortunately for us, by the time she was ready, which was years later than the traditional path for most aspiring physicians, the medical profession was receptive enough to accept Dr. Betsy Brown into its ranks. She brought the spirit of New Games with her. Betsy told me later that coordinating some games at an introductory session for her incoming class resulted in her being elected a student representative. One of the perks of that position was getting to meet, work, and play with fellow medical funster Patch Adams. I didn't know that. She continued to incorporate the idea of play and inclusivity into her practice. For example, holding staff meetings with all participants, from doctors to nurses to receptionists, seated on the floor helped to minimize the traditional hierarchies between the various positions. We could use more of that, couldn't we? Much later, her sense of empowerment compelled her to start a fact-based newsletter to distribute current and evidence-based information on the ever-changing concerns of the COVID pandemic. Just raise the hands, who got to see that newsletter? So taking up the fiddle as an adult, Betsy's feelings of inclusivity influenced her choice in music. After learning that I, a perennial beginner at the banjo, was planning a visit, she and her husband Jamie cautioned me that bluegrass music would not be welcome in their home. I assured them that people rarely interpret my random pluckings neither as bluegrass nor music. Much later, she explained her love of old-time music, that it was based on the tradition of everyone playing together to support the song and each other, rather than the bluegrass pattern of individual instruments taking turns showing off. If there is a heaven, please rest assured, Betsy is up there now, helping and caring for those already there, prepping the fields and stages for those of us still to arrive. And now I'll welcome up Claire Taylor.
Know my name. I'm a newcomer to Betsy's life. When I look out at this crowd, I've only known her for 17 years, and I came in on the coattails of Mary. I've been asked to read something that her friend Adrienne Burke wrote for us, and couldn't be here today. It's about 9.5 minutes long. Settle in. It's a remembrance of Adrienne's friend, and I think we will recognize Betsy as our friend in here. It's a testament to their friendship through decades. It's a bold look of the Betsy we knew as a woman of purpose, and it's an appeal to us today to follow in Betsy's action on her behalf and ours. Betsy. I met Betsy when both of us still had so much we didn't know about what lay ahead. We'd both arrived to the mountains of Colorado, a long way from our homes, for a gathering of new games, trainers, and staff. And we confessed to each other we were both a little nervous. But almost immediately, and for all 3 days, we started laughing and telling secrets and getting into adventures and analyzing dynamics and figuring out how to make each other happier, braver, sassier all weekend. And the alchemy between us just took, as Betsy said, from the very first minute. And oh my, did we laugh. Did I mention that? Did we laugh? You all know that sparkling smile. You all know that giggle, that little head shake. Betsy shed joy like the sun sheds light. At the time, I thought it was special to us, and I do know it was, but over the last 4.5 decades, it became apparent, more apparent, a lot of people feel like this about Betsy. And when she joined forces with Jamie, well, it seemed to me like communities just started blooming everywhere, every which way around them. Somehow, defying the logic of physics, these two seemed to have enough room for everyone in their hearts and in their lives. And then Barlow just absolutely sealed the deal. You know, all of you here know, and all of us who want to be there with you know. We recognize just how rare and precious a thing is to fill life with friendships and music and warmth. On our second meeting, Betsy and I discovered we were born the same week, and we decided to meet up for extended visits around our big birthdays. And so we ushered in together our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, our 60s, and we were well on our way planning our 70s. In between these longer visits, as we both moved a lot, we wrote lots and lots of letters and just admitted to each other that we have both kept all of them. Betsy is one of only 2 friends that has come to stay with me in all 3 countries I've lived in, and I've stayed in 5 of her homes. We've helped each other through med school and grad school, wrenching moves and teaching trials in many settings, and affairs of the heart, and bullying colleagues, the deaths of our parents and our brothers, and dearly loved friends, all while sharing the stories that sustained us and confessing unvarnished truth-telling through hard times. And did I mention laughing? Always laughing, and good cooking. Along the way, we've exchanged deliciousness of so many varieties, so much poetry, so many good books and ideas and resources, and just magical moments. I remember sitting in Arizona with her on the day the hummingbirds came migrating through, right through her backyard. Flights of them winging, whizzing, clicking their way through the late afternoon light. And hiking through a forest, talking about how to make a life without your own children. We weathered the tales and trials of each other's boyfriends and rejoiced in welcoming each other's wonderful husbands into our friendship. It was this past September, as I was hiking in Yellowstone, talking with Betsy in my mind, and marveling at some extraordinary cliff face, when an epiphany shot through me. Betsy is actually in the bedrock of my life, as true and elemental as it gets. And I miss her. I chatter to her like she's in the next room, because that's where I want her to be. And at some level, I just have to hold on to that. The thing is, there is something I feel Betsy would want me to say here, because though she was lovely and among the kindest of folk, she was also whip smart and had a fierceness and strength that mattered deeply to her. Many, perhaps all of you, read her newsletter during COVID. You know how she was marshaling all of her experience as a teacher, as a doctor, as a writer, as an observer of how you build and sustain community to write nearly every day as we all tried to find our footing in these strange times. I know from personal experience, it is hard to write every day, let alone publicly. And to do so not in a self-indulgent stream of consciousness way, but rather in an awareness of what a reader can take in, might need to take in, might be unable to take in just quite yet. And all this, even while Betsy was practicing medicine, dealing with her own patients, her own life, her own fluctuations in energy and discovery. She wrote hard. Yet she carried so many of us with such care for so many months and across so many experiences. She saved lives during those times, and she certainly saved spirits. And yet, do you remember, she sought to speak not only to each of us, but to all of us. She pointed gently to the idea that we as a society can be sick in many ways and must heal ourselves in many ways. She reminded us that we are making together the world we are collectively deeming acceptable. And though she laughed and sparkled along the way, she rarely took the easiest path when she felt deeply about a wrong she could right. I bring this up today because in the last week of her life, Betsy and I talked about what she wanted to do once she sorted out, and this is in quotes, once she sorted out this treatment plan, end quote. And aside from all the other wonderful things she had planned, we had planned, she and Jamie had planned, she said she wanted to write more. But this time, again quote, into the pandemic of misinformation and the kinds of messages particularly young men were getting, end quote. I watched Betsy's intelligence and passion flash across her face, the zeal with which she felt this must be done, her frustration at the fact that at that minute, tied up to tubes and oxygen, she couldn't quite manage it. I watched Betsy's intelligence and passion flash across her face. I realized her words were an invitation to me, and I suggest to all of us who love her. Since last November 1, the world we all live in has changed enormously, and I feel part of loving Betsy. And giving celebration for her extraordinary life is to carry on with intelligence and compassion and kindness, but also with urgency, to channel Betsy's truth-telling, her courage, her measured, thoughtful engagement, and let us challenge the liars, the ones who wish to harm on our neighbors, the ones who deny science and injustice. Well, we can't be Betsy, but in her name, following her spirit, we can be brave, we can each be generous, we can each tell the truth to those who deny it, whenever and however the opportunities arise in our own lives. Do it for the planet. Do it for the hummingbirds. Do it for the communities we want flourishing, healthy, and welcoming. Do it for Betsy. Let your breath be an extension of hers. And did I mention laughing? Maybe throw in a head wiggle and a dazzling smile too. I love you, Betsy, and feel so blessed to have known you for so much of my life. Thank you for all of it, yes, from the very first minute. Rest well, dear friend, and know you are surrounded by love. Adrian.
I can think of many Betsy moments, and they all kind of center on her generosity, and that's just who she was. I remember when we were teaching a string band class and we lost our situation where we were teaching the class, and she goes, "Oh, do it at my house." and I also remember when our daughter we were at Fiddleton's, and our daughter was in one of the student bands, and Betsy just took her in, and not because she was a kid, but because she was another fiddler. And I just love that. Another recent one, a couple of years ago, we were at Centralia, and it was 105 degrees, and we were wilting, and we were walking back behind the trees, and there was Betsy with a kiddie pool with water and ice, and said, "Come on, you guys, put your feet in the water." That was Betsy. Jerry, do you have words?
Move over.
Okay. Move over.
We're going to do a little song, and this is one I learned from Paul Brown, but it's called Settle Down, Settle Down, Settle Down. And I sang this one time at a concert, and a woman came up afterwards and said, "You know, I'm a preschool teacher. I need to learn that song." My mama, she told me when I was 9 years old, "You're gonna be a hustler, gosh darn, your heart looks so." I got my ticket, and I tell you what I think I'll do. I'm going down to Tampa, settle down. Settle down, settle down, settle down. Settle down, settle down, settle down. I got my ticket And I tell you what I think I'll do. I'm going down to Tampa, settle down. Well, conductor, conductor, won't you let me ride your blind? You gotta have a ticket, don't you know this train ain't mine? I got my ticket, I tell you what I think I'll do. I'm going down to Tampa, settle down. Settle down, settle down, settle down. Settle down, settle down, settle down. I got my ticket, and I tell you what I think I'll do. I'm going down to Tampa, settle down.
I was talking to Jamie and he goes, Betsy really loved it. There's a tune that I wrote a couple of years ago called Obama's March to the White House, and he said she really loved that tune and I would love it if you'd play it. And I'm gonna try to play it.
Hi, my name is Russell Owens, and I apologize for reading this, but I'm much more organized when I put my words on paper than when I try to speak extemporaneously, and I'm going to try to hold it together. It's not looking good. I was lucky enough to know Betsy in 3 different capacities over the years. She was my doctor, she was my coworker, and she was my friend. To fully explain what Betsy means to me, I need to tell you about where I was in my life when I met her. My mother passed away when I was a very young man. Not only was she my best friend, she was the glue that held our family together, as so many mothers are. My world imploded after that. Reeling from this loss, I truly lost my will to live and turned to drugs to numb myself and to avoid dealing with my grief. I soon became addicted to methamphetamine and was an everyday user for close to 3 years. During that time, I took many risks with my health, and that resulted in me contracting HIV. I soon found that meth was not just useful for avoiding processing the grief, but it was also helpful in me avoiding the processing of my diagnosis, and I just spiraled in deeper and deeper. After a scare related to my drug use, I knew the choice was to get sober or to die. And so I moved to New Mexico to be close to my aunt and to begin the process of healing and attempting sobriety. After a year there, I decided I should establish care for my HIV. And at my intake at the HIV clinic in Santa Fe, I was assigned a doctor, and that doctor was Dr. Betsy Brown. From the minute she walked into the room, I knew she was in my corner. Her kindness and her focus on meeting me where I was at allowed me to feel safe, to open up with her about my past. The thing I remember most at that first appointment was her telling me that if I took my meds every day and got on meds as soon as possible, that I would live a normal lifespan. You will live long enough, I remember her saying with a smile, to die of what kills the rest of us. Heart disease, accidents, strokes, and cancer. I immediately burst into tears at this news, and my sobs, of course, came from very deep within me. All of the pain and grief that I had bottled up for years just poured out. I will never forget, she stood up, came over, and asked me if she could give me a hug, and sat down next to me and cradled me as I let it all out. Searching for purpose on what I felt like was my new lease on life, I became a firefighter and an EMT in my small town in New Mexico, and I loved it. I soaked up everything I could learn about medicine and found that I was good at it. Betsy encouraged me each step of the way and at every appointment. As my emergency medical training advanced, she urged me to apply for a job as a medical assistant at the same clinic at which I received care. When I started my MA position, I was told by the nurse manager that no one wanted to work with Dr. Brown, that she was difficult to work for and to get along with. I found this hard to believe given my experience as her patient, but I was assured it was the truth. I quickly learned what I'm sure every woman in this room knows. If you are intelligent, if you are driven, if you are competent and have a strong work ethic, and if you are a woman, you're labeled difficult. I learned so much at that clinic, but my biggest lessons were learned from working with Betsy. She truly cared for her patients and not just in the clinical sense. Her compassion was palpable. She was a ferocious advocate for them. And in that extremely dysfunctional work environment, she regularly demonstrated the importance of doing the right thing, even when it wasn't the popular thing. Needless to say, I soon became Betsy's sole MA. And she fed my love for medicine by sharing cases with me, by bringing me into the exam room for interesting exams. She would give me medical journal articles to read, and quiz me on them, and answer any questions that I had. She trained me to assist her with some procedures, and she advocated with clinic management successfully for me to attend the Harvard University Medical School HIV update one year. As Betsy and I worked together, she became my biggest cheerleader, telling me that I should apply to medical school, that I had a talent for medicine and was great with patients. I'd never had someone encourage me like this. Never had someone I looked up to professionally take such an interest in me. And so I went back to school to start my math and science prerequisites. She would celebrate my grades with me each semester. She made me feel like I could do anything. And in the end, as life does, when it had different plans for me than to become a doctor, I still carry with me and value the belief in myself that she gave me. After she returned to Seattle from New Mexico, I soon serendipitously followed her north when my partner took a job at a clinic in Portland. Concerned that we knew no one in Portland, she hooked us up with Dave and Martha, who are musicians, some of you may know, who showed up while we were moving into our house with a welcome basket and a bottle of wine. I thought they were looking for somebody else. No, we live here now. Concerned that we wouldn't have somewhere to go for Thanksgiving, she invited us to join JB and his brother Ned and their family for Thanksgiving in our new town. Shortly after we moved there, I had a chance to repay Betsy's kindness in a way that reflected our friendship and seemed strangely poetic. I received a call from Betsy during which she shared with me that UCSF Medical School was starting a study to determine if using high-resolution endoscopy to screen and treat precancerous lesions reduces the risk of anal cancer in people living with HIV. This was one of the procedures that Betsy did in New Mexico, and I assisted her probably a few hundred times. Without boring you with too many of the details, the procedure involves using a camera with high power magnification that you insert, well, you get the idea. She, of course, wanted to participate in this study. And to be a sub-investigator, she would have to demonstrate proficiency with the procedure for a team from UCSF. The problem, as she explained to me, was due to the relative short amount of time she'd been back in Seattle practicing medicine. She didn't yet have a patient that she felt comfortable asking if they would allow her to perform the procedure in front of an audience. I think you know where this is going. And I ask you, if you won't allow a friend to stick a camera up your ass in front of a room full of 4 total strangers, are you even friends? This is now the gold standard by which I judge all friendship. So if we're friends, I've gamed out some really weird scenarios. Since Betsy's death, I have thought a lot about how particularly cruel and unfair the timing is given this strange new world we're all facing. One in which we desperately need all the points of light we can muster. But the more I've thought about it, the more I know that she's already given me, and indeed all of us in this room, the roadmap we need to be useful and to make it through this. Be compassionate, be ferocious, advocate for those that need your help now more than ever. Always bring your A game, look out for each other, and always do the right thing, even when it feels like we're swimming against the current. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, Betsy, for the excellent care you gave me, for the precious gift of your friendship when I needed it most, and for the love you've shown me. Thank you.
What a gift. Thank you, Russell. And now I'll welcome up Robbie Sherman.
want you to know that I've prepared my remarks over the last 20 minutes or so, because Jamie forgot to ask me ahead of time. So if they seem a little scattered, you'll understand. Betsy and I first crossed paths. I'm also a family doctor. I see another couple of you out there. First crossed paths with Betsy during her training, and I was fortunate to be the physician for a number of residents during their training, and got to know her then and really enjoyed her very much. But I didn't really see her again after that for a while until my husband and I ran across her. We were in France on vacation, and we were staying at this little B&B in somewhere near Carcassonne. And the guy who ran it was an American, and he said, "Oh, somebody who stayed here last week left you a note. They saw your name on our reservation list." Turned out it was Betsy and Jamie had stayed there just 2 days before on their honeymoon. So it was a great chance to connect with her again. And then again, I didn't hear much, but I was recruited to start a small new family medicine group within the Polyclinic. I transferred from downtown up to the big building, and was looking for some physicians to join me there. And I had 2/3 of the people I needed. I needed one more person, and then I got a phone call that Betsy was looking. And I thought, wow, awesome. So she came up and showed her around, talked about the group, and we ended up sipping scotch in the chief medical officer's office that afternoon. And poor Jamie's waiting to hear from her whether or not she's gotten the job. And we're sitting there sipping scotch and having a good time, thinking about the times ahead. It was great. I absolutely never regretted for one moment hiring Betsy to work with. She was a pleasure. The sensibilities you heard about around the new games, the inclusiveness, the collaboration, was a real hallmark of this small group that we started. And you may not realize that actually being a doctor these days can be pretty lonely. You've got a lot of get it done, get through day, and you get blinders. And you can work next to somebody all day long and hardly exchange any words with them. But working with Betsy was a different experience, and she and I pulled this group together in a way. We'd sit down in the morning with coffee, everybody around, not just the doctors, the medical assistants, the receptionists. What do we got cooking today? Where's room in our schedule? Anything cooking? And what about this new electronic health record that none of us know how to use very well? And we shared tips and tricks and really worked together on that. It was a really joyous time. She also instituted the lunchtime walk to Starbucks. And we would scooch way down the hill and then all the way back up again. Just the chance to walk and talk together in the middle of the day. And in case you think that was really unusual, most of us work like crazy through lunch so that we didn't have to stay there all evening. So to take the 10 minutes it took to walk down to Starbucks, get the shot of espresso, which she would just knock back, and walk back up was a sacrifice in a way, except that it really promoted a collegiality and a warmth together. I was tremendously impressed with her kindness, her humor, her continual looking for growth, learning how to be a better leader, how to be a better person. She was always working on that. And it was just inspirational to see someone who never gave up trying to grow and change. I don't have to tell you that she took great passion in caring for those who other people didn't really want to care for, people with Hep C, with HIV, and I knew I could always count on her. If I got somebody with a positive syphilis test, she would know how to treat it. So, Betsy and I are both musicians. I'm on the classical side of things, and one time she was going to teach me a fiddle tune. I play viola, so it's a fifth down from the violin. And I am generally wedded to the printed music page, so this was quite a challenge for me. And it wasn't entirely successful, but we had a really good time and a lot of good laughter. One of the last things Betsy did for me was she loaned me something that I probably should have had one of and didn't. Neither one of us were much for the White Coat Brigade. Felt like it would kind of put a distance between us and our patients. But I had been cast as St. Luke in the church Christmas pageant, and I needed a white coat. And so I called up Betsy to see if she had one, because I didn't. And she did, in fact, loan me this perfectly starched white coat that she had obviously never worn. And so I was grateful to her for that. And it was a moment of humor among us to have this object that so symbolized our mutual profession that neither one of us had ever used. So I am so grateful to have known and worked with Betsy. I learned from her. I shared music with her. I admired her kindness, her humor, and her sense of warmth and caring for everybody. So, thanks.
I only got to know Betsy for less than 2 years. We met one day in spring 2023 on a walk with American pilgrims on the Camino. She and Jamie had just returned from their first pilgrimage on the Camino Portugués, and I was getting ready to go back for my second Camino. And I don't know how we started walking. I think maybe just we had the same pace. We started chatting and chatting and chatting and chatting for miles and miles and miles. And I remember thinking, wow, what an amazing woman. She shared about how she'd retired from her medical practice, about her experience on the Camino. And then, miracle of miracles, we discovered we lived 3 blocks away from each other. So we were friends, whether she liked it or not. But we set up a time and went for a walk. And then we went for walk after walk after walk, because she was still wanting to walk. Once you finish the Camino, you just want to walk all the time. So she was in that stage, and I was getting ready, so I needed to walk all the time. And it was so great to have a friend. And so we would just walk all around streets like this, in Ballard and Finney Ridge and Fremont. We discovered we both loved really good bakeries. Not crappy bakeries, but like really good bakeries. My mom's a baker, and I was like, oh, Betsy knows. Betsy knows the legit bakeries. So we would, of course, have to try out local bakeries and see if they were good. And, you know, we'd balance it out with the walking, but kind of. You know, sometimes we needed an extra croissant. But as we walked for these hours and hours, we just got to know each other. And our conversations would go from everything to Christian nationalists to her medical practice to us as writers. And in some ways, there's no reason we should have been friends, because our lives are really different. Like, we're from completely different generations. She was a doctor, I'm a pastor. It was like, yeah, how did this happen? But then when we actually just started walking, we just fell in with each other. And so she helped me get ready for my second Camino, and off I went. And I came back wanting to walk everywhere, so Betsy came along. And she started to talk about this desire to go back. There was unfinished business from her first Camino. And so we talked it, and as we walked, and she dreamed, and I prepared to take another group on the Camino for 2024. And finally got to send her off in spring. And we had this real short little window of time between her trip, her getting back, and me going. And we met up, and my biggest question was, did your business get finished? Like, did what you walk for, did it happen? And she didn't go into details, but she said, yeah, something got finished in me. We had no idea that was gonna be her last Camino. And in my mind, we would be back here this time this year, walking, getting ready to walk again. And so she helped send me off on my third Camino. And I think maybe the day before I was leaving, I realized my trekking poles weren't gonna fit in my bag. And so I was in a panic in my apartment, like, oh no, what am I gonna do? Ah! And a thought came to me, text Betsy. So I text Betsy and say, okay, this is real last minute, but do you have a pair of trekking poles that are small that can fit? And yeah, she's like, oh my gosh, yes, come on over. And she saved my day. She helped me not to buy more things from Amazon, so yay for that. And she sent me off on my third Camino. And I got back, ready to walk with my friend again. And she wasn't able to. She didn't know why yet, but she just knew she couldn't make it up her hill. And so instead of walking, we'd sit, we'd hang out. We went to an apple pressing party. And all of a sudden, she was in the hospital. And I kept waiting for the text from Jamie to say she was gone. And then I got a text saying she was coming off the ventilator. And then on Halloween day, Jamie said, do you want to come over? And I had a real short window of time. I'm so glad I went. I rushed over like as fast as I could from Ballard to UW and rushed up and fought with the front desk person to let me in. Not really, but I could hear the music playing from outside the room. And I walked in, and there were a few friends there. Jamie and another friend were playing music. And there was my friend, and she was awake. And I went over, we held hands. We got to tell each other that we loved each other. I had only 15 minutes, and then I had to go run home. And then I got the text the next day that she was gone. And I kept looking at my phone thinking, no, this can't be right. Like she made it through. She made it off the ventilator. And then I kept coming back to that moment in the hospital. She was surrounded. She was listening to her favorite music, like her legs, I keep seeing her feet bouncing back and forth to the music. She knew she was loved. And as much as I didn't want to say goodbye to her, I keep thinking, what a beautiful, perfect way to go. Knowing you're loved, knowing you're surrounded, listening to your favorite music. And even though I'd, in a heartbeat, take another walk with her, I'm really glad that that's how she got to complete her circle. And now I'm going to welcome up Jamie so he can share a little bit about this amazing woman.
Well, that's a bunch of hard acts to follow. What an amazing thing to have you all here. I mean, I got to see you all kind of coming in, but this is the first time I've been able to actually really look and really see everybody. And a lot of what I wanted to talk about is exactly this, that community was the hallmark of Betsy's life and was so much of why she and I were together. And I look out here and I see so many communities. And that was, I sat and started writing down, the various communities and the obvious ones of music and medicine, but writing and art and the Camino and walking in the mountains and it was like I kept going again, and I just kept writing more and more down there. Just like birding, horses, fiddle tunes, chickens. I mean, it's just like there are just all these things. And it's wow. She touched us all. I've been holding it really together really well up until now. It's funny, one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about was what an artist she was in so many ways. And that was really of making what she did her own and using her creativity to make it something very distinct. And like I thought about her fiddle playing, and she'd never think of herself as, a highly articulate, polished fiddler. And that was one of the things I loved, is that she loved the old guys. She loved her geezers. They never got up on the wall, but she had all these pictures of her with J.P. Fraley and with Ben Flippen and all of these amazing old guys. They were her geezers. She just loved it, and she channeled that in her fiddling, and it was scratchy and rough and had this rhythm to it that just made your feet move. And our friend Michael Combs, who's an amazing street singing musician in New Mexico, was watching us one time, and we finished a tune-up, and he just went, okay, now I get old-time music. I'm getting that thing. And one of the places that I felt that she was truly an artist was in medicine. And she taught me that medicine is an art. It uses science as the materials, but as any artists know, you spend years learning materials and learning techniques and then using them to solve the problem that is at hand. And she would come home and she'd tell me of doing a diagnosis where all the testing and all the things that seemed logical pointed here, and she's going, except there's this. It was kind of her Columbo thing of there's something I just still don't understand. What's this? And she'd go into that and come up with this, and yet it was real, it was right, it was like, oh my God. And one of the things that she talked about in learning that was that there's a saying, an adage in med school that when you hear hoof beats, think horses, not zebras. Think of the thing that, because it's really easy to, as we all can do it, this is conspiracy theories and everything else, is, well, it must be that. It's like, no, think horses, not zebras. The thing that I keep coming back to is that she got run over by a herd of zebras. The cancer that got her came out of left field. We had no idea. We thought she had asthma that had been set off by the COVID. And it just was one of those things that it was kind of really this ironic thing that what took her out is her lungs just gave up, and it was exactly how people died in COVID. Acute respiratory distress syndrome. And that's how it was. That's reality. And this entire thing, and you know, one of the things that I just am continually dealing with on this is that reality bats last. This is, you just have to deal with reality. Doesn't mean you have to just accept it in, you know, because we've got a whole new reality that we're going to go with Betsy. We're not going to just accept this. And that was the one other thing that I wanted to say is, we've all got a lot of grief right now. We've got a lot of grief over losing Betsy. And we've got a lot of grief over a lot of other stuff. And as a number of people have alluded to, we need to take that grief and turn it into action, because it's energy. Grief is energy. And so, we are community. We are the thing that is. We have to support each other. We have to bring other people into community. This is what we've got. And it's what, I mean, it's been really funny because Regina, who's the woman that is the manager here, as people came in yesterday and decorated and moved tables and moved chairs and moved, she's just looking and going, oh my God, I have never seen a group like this. I need to know these people. These are, you know, I can use this, you know. But it is, it's that thing, it's that energy that we have with each other, for each other, that is why we are the people who we are, and why we are able to help each other and help others. So we are all going to do this in Betsy's name, and in our names, and in the names of the world. And we're going to keep this going. And with that, there's a potluck downstairs. And is Mary Nelson around? I know, we hadn't really kind of gotten this together. It's like, so, one of the things that we're going to now do, so Betsy and I were in the Basque Country in 2017, and we were hanging out, actually waiting. They were people that were preparing a couple's massage for us at this spot because they'd screwed up our reservation, and they were mortified. So we were kind of sitting outside on this grassy patio looking over the Bay of Biscay. And this is outside of Mutriku in the Basque Country. And Betsy says, well, I've got this, I've been working on this waltz. Well, let's play it. Okay, and so I recorded it on my phone. And we found that. And so we put it together. So we'll be right back.
Jamie and Mary are getting ready to play. I'm one of the potluck organizers, so I wanted to ask, I'm Debbie, by the way.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi. Please give us about 10 minutes before you start coming to the potluck line. Okay? We just want to get get stuff set up before everybody makes their way down. Thank
Are there
you.
chairs down there? Or do you
Yeah,
have
chairs
to-
will come down, so that can be happening while we're dealing with food.
There is an elevator, so.
Yeah, there's an elevator and racks to put the chairs on.
Okay, and
Do you need help?
We have a lot of potluck helpers, I think we're good.
but one thing I do want to say about the elevator is fragile. The elevator is old and the elevator is tired. And not long ago, somebody held the door open for a little too long and it fried the board. It fried the commands, and they had to get one made. They aren't parts for this thing. So there's little signs all over the place. And like for holding the door open, there's a button. For holding the door open, use the button. And there's also a little spot, I think there's an electric eye in the door that you can block and not necessarily hold the door. And those are the things that the signs say. Obey the signs. Because we want that elevator to work. Now, this is going to be really interesting to see if we can do this. We did it yesterday and it was great fun. And now we'll see if we can do it again.
So, can you tell?
Oh, yes. So this is Euskal Herria, and Euskara is the Basque language. And so this is the Basque country in Basque, is the name. So this was, she first named it País Vasco, which is the Basque country in Spanish. But you talk to the Basques, they are not Spanish.
And I'd like to say that, well, this is by Betsy and for Betsy, but also when Jamie gave me the recording, it was just so wonderful to hear Betsy's voice on there and Jamie. And Jamie said, so what's the name of this tune? And she goes, Biscotti. And then Jamie didn't know what to say, and then she just starts playing, and Jamie's
Biscotti?
That was Betsy.
the potluck, and we will need to get some chairs down there, and, you know, it might be good for a bunch of us to just go outside. It doesn't look too bad out there, and you know, just try to give some room if possible.
Can I just suggest one thing?
Yes.
And that is, as we move the chairs, I noticed that you have been so fabulously listening and soaking up, Betsy. I would suggest in this 10-15 minutes that we have, you grab someone and tell them your story and bring her as much in our presence as we can. So the next 10 or 15 minutes is your story with someone else.